all again for coming tonight. I know people are missing things. I know Sam missed his pickleball this afternoon, so we appreciate that. We also appreciate Ann coming to talk to us about combining project management expertise with lifelong process improvement, inclination to identify key process problems and areas, and transform how work is done. Leading people on teams with enthusiasm, freedom to excel, known for creating clarity out of chaos and complex programs in global enterprises. Anne's going to talk to us about managing up, taking things up to the next level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. So, many familiar faces. It's good to see you guys. I'm Anne Wulffraat, for those who don't yet know. And I'm here today to talk to you about communicating up. So quickly, during the period of time that we have together tonight, we're going to start by talking about some bad behaviors. You guys are going to help me identify some things. We're going to talk about some tips, hopefully, that will help improve those. We're going to talk about tackling bad news and communicating that upward. And the effect of culture and how to anticipate the reactions that you're going to have to deal with when you're communicating bad news up. Let me quickly ask, can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, a lot of times people are afraid of up-level communication, so I want to talk about how it's actually a great opportunity, no matter what the message is that you're delivering. So, bad habits of communication. I was thinking three sort of scenarios. One, it's Monday morning, you go into work bright and early. You are looking forward to getting some early work done, nobody else is there. And the first person you see is the CEO. And he says, "Good morning," and you know you're in for it. You don't, whether you know this person well or not, you've never seen them before, you know something is going to happen from this conversation. So there's scenario one. Scenario two, you're going to the same weekly meeting you have every week. You know you have to deliver your status, and you walk in the room, and there he is, the CEO, sitting there, waiting. And you know you've got some news that you have to deliver that may or may not be good. Scenario two. Keep that one in mind. And finally, scenario three is when you go to that board meeting and you know CEO is going to be there, and it might be the first time you've ever done it, and your knees are knocking a little bit, so that's your third scenario. So in any of these scenarios, think about your situation where you've done this before, or think about your colleague or your friend who's talked to you about what's happened, or you're in a meeting and you're not on the hot seat, but you watch the person who is on the hot seat. What kinds of things have you seen that aren't good? What are some of the bad habits that pop out?
Blaming.
Blaming. That's a good one.
Evasion.
Evasion and blaming. How about in the actual way that you're communicating?
Talking quietly.
Good one. Talking quietly.
Ums and
And ers.
yeah. Forgetting words.
Oh. That's a good one. Anything else? Any other bad ones?
Defensiveness.
Defensiveness. Good one. We'll talk about, a couple of those are bigger and we'll talk about them as we get further into it. But I threw some other ideas up here. Too wordy, sharing too much information. Or nowadays like, then they said this and like they did that. Eye contact. Interrupting. Oh, that person has a solution for everything. Third rail topics, and they're just too darn quiet. At least one said that one. So starting at the top, too wordy and sharing too much information. I'm going to give you guys, if you're prone to that, oftentimes it's nervousness. You're getting into a room and you're sitting down and all of a sudden you're just very nervous and you're going to say everything you're possibly say, you're going to say as quickly as you can possibly say it, then you're going to be done. But that's not good. So when you're going into a room and you have to deliver a message, I want to give you a military acronym, BLUF. So you're going to go in and you're going to bluff, B-L-U-F, bottom line up front. Okay? It's the same idea as a newspaper article where your headline and your first paragraph are everything you really need to know. You're talking to executives. You want to give them the bottom line up front. They don't need to know how you got there. They don't need to know what you eat for breakfast. They just need to know the bottom line up front. Okay, so when you get into a situation when that CEO greets you at the door and says, "Hey, well, here's a simple one. I haven't met you. Who are you?" You don't say, well, I was born and raised in Des Moines, Iowa. You give them your name and your job title. It's the same thing if you're in a meeting and you're asked a question or you're presenting a situation or an issue. Bottom line up front. What is it that they really need to know? And then you stop. Stop. Just stop. And let them drive the conversation into something deeper if they need to go there. Now, and the like. I actually love this tip. If you're prone to doing this, and when I was learning about how to try to conquer the ums and the ers and the likes, it was suggested to me that Barack Obama probably had the same problem. Because the solution for ums and ers is continuing to say them. They're actually really good, but you're going to say them in here. So when you have something that you want to say, and you're uncertain, every time you want to speak the word you think it instead. And as a result, your discussion, what you share, how you say it, comes across as very thoughtful. See what I did there? I was and like to the beat there, but the suggestion was that Barack Obama does that too, because if you've ever listened to him speak, he has sort of a natural cadence where he pauses and it emphasizes. And it does give you the impression that he is very seriously thinking through what he's sharing with you. Now he may be seriously thinking through what he shares with you, but there also may be some component of this. And I think that this is a really great tool, so try to remember that one. Keep it with you, keep the ums, keep the ers, but just keep them in here. Now eye contact, we all know, we hear it all the time. Make eye contact, make eye contact, make eye contact. Simple trick here is don't actually look people in the eye. If you're one of those people that's a little uncomfortable with it, look here. And it sounds silly. I tried it actually, this is silly, but I tried it with my dogs. So I would look at them right here in the forehead, and they would get so excited, they would think, oh, she's looking at me, and they didn't know, but I was looking here. So don't hesitate if you're uncomfortable with eye contact, just start by looking at the person's forehead, bridge of the nose, center of the eyes. You don't have to look deep in the eyes. But you notice I didn't say lack of eye contact. Here's the thing. Have you guys ever been in an interview or a meeting where the person you're talking to blocks your eyes? And then it doesn't matter what they say or what they do, they never ever look away from you. And until you feel like you're in some kind of death battle and your brain's gone to the Bahamas because you're just like, oh my gosh. So if you're one of those people, don't do that either. I mean, eye contact should be natural. It should be inclusive. It should be a connection, but it shouldn't be an aggressive attack of any kind. And that's actually another thing I've learned from my dogs. They don't like it when you stare at them for too long, so they've got something there. Neither do we. Interrupting is a tough one. I don't know how many of us are aware of our own inclination to interrupt on. But the suggestion for this one is interesting. They said, don't worry about your own interrupting, worry about other people interrupting you. So when you're speaking, if somebody interrupts you, you just stop. Going back to where I was, pick up, don't acknowledge it, and move forward. And if you have to do this several times, it sends a message that I've interrupted and that's unacceptable. But it also makes you aware of what you're doing if you interrupt someone else. So it's an interesting thing. It takes a little more time. You've got to become hyper aware of other people interrupting you in order to learn yourself that you should not be interrupting others. It's a tough lesson and it takes time. But one thing you definitely never want to do is end up in that thing where you're yelling at each other and both trying to talk over each other. All right, the next one, a solution for everything. Have you met this person who you start talking about something, immediately they have a solution? And you say, well, we kind of tried to do this, and then, oh, well, they have a solution for that too. And no matter what they do, you have a solution. Two problems with this. I think, honestly, if you're the person who has the solutions, you think you're doing a great service. You're helping these people. You know how to fix things, and you want to go out there and you want to fix things. Two problems. The first being that somebody's coming and sharing with you something that they've been struggling with for a while. And 20 seconds into it, you already know how to fix it. Or 40 seconds into it, you know how to fix it. And you're discounting the fact that this person actually knows what they're talking about and has dwelled on this. It's not a simple thing. So when you continually think that you're fixing it, you're kind of telling them that you don't trust their ability to analyze the situation and come up with a solution yourself, especially one that you could come up with in 20 seconds. Which brings you to the second thing, you're not listening. So if you find yourself trying to jump to the conclusion and trying to help and fix, stop yourself, sit back and listen to the full story and get all of it and try to take it all in and put yourself where the presenter is so that you can understand really what the problem is as opposed to trying to fix it. I recently had a project end, and during the project it was very clear from some of my stakeholders that the way we were doing things just wasn't working. Excuse me. I thought at the time that we needed to sit down and discuss whether the approach that we were taking repeatedly was even the right approach. It occurred to me that there was a better way to do these things. It didn't involve the project and didn't involve a complex solution for them. So I told them, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this. We'll have the lessons learned. And when I scheduled the lessons learned, this other person who had never been involved in the project but had worked with some of these people off to the side came to me and said, I need to be on that meeting. I said, okay. And I said, why? You know, it's the lessons learned on what we've been through. And she said, we already sat down and we already discussed the lessons learned and figured out what needs to change, and we're going to come to the meeting and tell you. Every project manager in here is going, ah! I certainly was. But I said, all right, fine, we'll see how it goes. So we started the meeting, and they laid it out. All the things that we had done wrong, everything that was wrong, and how we were supposed to fix it. And we got about 40 minutes into the meeting, and we finally got to the point where I realized that everything they had suggested was absolutely impossible based on the timeline of how this project had to flow. And it's a little out of context, but the project is a repeating thing. It just keeps going through. And they were asking for information here when the information didn't come out until here. So there was just no way. And I said, you know, it's unfortunate that you guys had that discussion because you've done an awful lot of work, and here we are, but your solution can't possibly work. It is just absolutely impossible. So we had to stop, take a seat back, and just do the whole thing again. But that's what you get when you jump to the conclusions and you're not listening. We needed to all sit down and all be together to all understand what the dependencies were so that we could actually find the right solution. Third rail topics. You guys know what I mean by third rail topics? It's such a fun phrase. Politics. But in this context, I actually mean any topic that you bring up that can kill a conversation. So maybe you know this person, and maybe you are this person who, wow, it was gorgeous this morning. The sky was blue. It was so crisp and beautiful with the fresh snow. It was cold. Or, good morning, how are you today? Ah, the commute stunk, so extra long. How was your weekend? Oh, the weather stunk. That person has just always got that negative little delivery that they have to bring. You don't want to be that person. And if you find that you are, even sometimes, I mean, I think we all are sometimes, try to spin it. You know, it was a beautiful morning. It really was. It was a pity it was too cold, but it was beautiful. And on the commute this morning, when it was extra long and kind of arduous, I got to listen to a whole new chapter of how to speak French. Little bon mot. Or, oh my goodness, the radio played the song that I haven't heard in ages, and it put me in such a good mood, and I would have been out of the car and in the office already if that hadn't happened. So just ways to spin things. So if somebody asks you how you're doing, you're not the person saying, oh, it stinks. Because it doesn't stink. It might stink for a moment, but it's not always stinking. Try to find the golden, the silver lining. And finally, the last one was too quiet. I used to be that person, believe it or not. Just sitting in the room, being very quiet, and not thinking that it was appropriate to speak up, or that I just didn't know enough more than anyone else in the room that I should speak up. So I would just sit there quietly, and then I would kick myself later for not being a presence in the room. I think that's not uncommon, but I think it's a positive thing. I think there are really some good benefits to being the person who's too quiet in the room. One thing, if you are one of those quiet people, that you will know that you do is you take notes, right? You want to be busy, you want to understand what's going on, you're taking notes, you're trying to learn. And that is not lost on all the talkers in the room. They all know that while they're out there talking and sharing and trying to fix everything, you're taking notes and you're paying attention and you're listening to all of it. So although you are not speaking throughout the entire presentation or throughout the entire meeting, what you want to do is end with the last word. And maybe not the last word, but a last word. And you want it to be a good word. And it's going to be a good word because you've sat there the entire meeting and you've listened and you've taken notes. And when you stop and you open your mouth, people are going to listen. They're going to want to know what you've gleaned from this. Now, ideally, you do have a solution to offer. You've listened to everybody and you actually have something that they haven't suggested to bring up. That happens. It does happen. Quite a bit, actually, especially if you do sit there and listen. The other thing that can happen is that you simply provide a summary. I've heard this, this, and this. These are the things that we need to accomplish. This needs to happen. I think perhaps we need to have a meeting in 2 days after you've talked to that person and you've talked to that person, then we can reconvene. Suddenly you're in control, but you were the one that was quiet throughout the entire meeting. So being too quiet is not a bad thing. It's a very powerful thing if you understand how to use it. So there we kind of go. BLUF. Bottom line up front, thank you. Positivity. Don't be afraid of silence. In fact, silence is really, really good a lot of the time. You're listening. And take your notes, take your time. And when you speak, come from a place of power. So when I first started thinking about communicating up, I instantly went to the bad news. Because I still remember early in my career having to go to a meeting and say things were red, and I was sitting there and my knees were knocking, and my hands were sweaty, and my heart was pounding in my chest, and I really wished that I had had somebody on my shoulder to tell me to coach me through it, to take a deep breath, to relax, and what to do. So that was kind of where my focus went. But I've spoken and chatted with colleagues and friends since I started thinking about this. And I realized the good news is obviously just as important. As I was saying a minute ago, you don't want to be the bad news person all the time. So having the opportunity to share good news is important. Now, you guys probably know this, but as a project manager, you are a leader. And as a leader, when you share good news, you're sharing your team's news. You're sharing the happy news on behalf of the team. You're not taking credit. You are giving them credit. It is their accomplishment that you want to celebrate. You may call out some people that everybody agrees have really gone above and beyond. That's awesome to do. But it is their accomplishment that you are bringing to executive attention in order to celebrate. Whereas with bad news, and we'll talk about that more, you're on the hook. This is you. You are responsible when it's bad news. The team is responsible when it's good news. You are responsible when it's bad news. Now, I want you to get it out of your head that that means you don't get the credit for the good stuff, and you only get the credit for the bad stuff. That's not true. A leader gives the attention to the team that is working with him and takes responsibility for the problems. That is a leader. And if it doesn't feel like that, you've gotten the credit for being a leader on the first time through, keep going. You will be recognized as a leader when you celebrate the accomplishments of the team and take responsibility for the problems as the leader. And then, soapbox off. The last thing was really interesting. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day. She said, well, you know, I always think what's really important to the executives, especially in a hierarchical organization where they don't get to see the day-to-day work that's going on, is what's going on the street. They just don't know. So hearing something like, you had the all-hands meeting last week. It was really good. I think people were excited. You did mention this one thing that there was some skepticism about, but I think they're fully on board to try it, and they all hope it'll work. That's awesome feedback for an executive to hear. Or you haven't had an all-hands meeting of the organization for quite some time. And I think the project team's a little unclear on how the project fits into the strategy of your organization. That's big. That's powerful. That's simple. And of course they want to know what's going well. Hey, you know what? Since you passed those policy measures, we haven't had any server breakdowns. We've been able to get the resources we need. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. All really positive news. So you don't necessarily have to focus on just the good or just the bad. The feedback is important too, and that might be the stuff that you focus on when you run into the CEO Monday morning first thing in the hallway. Okay, so now we gotta talk about the bad news. Bad news really is an opportunity. I know when I first started PMing, I wanted my project to be green. I was gonna control that project so well, it was just gonna always, always, always be green. And of course, the first time it wasn't, I was terrified. I also found moving to a new organization or a place where you're not known as well, you kind of want to be green all the time. You want to be good, right? But if your projects are always green, you are not being challenged. And you know, you may become, yeah, the projects are always green, but you're not the person that the executives are going to think of when a project's in trouble. Like, oh boy, I wish Joe was on that project. Or maybe we should put Joe on that project to help it recover. You want to be the strong PM, the go-to PM, and you're not going to get to be the strong go-to PM by always being green. So it's an opportunity for you. When you go in there and you own whatever is going on, and we'll talk about how to do that, you're going to show them that you are in charge. You know how to manage what's happening. And they're going to say, wow, this isn't just green. This person actually knows what they're doing. You may not get to know your up levels a whole lot better by bringing to them a red project. You may know how they'll react a little better, but you might not get to know them, but they're going to get to know you very well. And they're going to start trusting you a lot more. And as a result, they're going to know that if there is a complex project coming up that looks to have some uncertainty or looks to have some challenges, you are the go-to person. You know how to make the difficult decisions, you know how to fix the issues, you know how to ask for help if it's needed, and most of all, you're going to take responsibility and drive that home, no matter what it takes. And that's who you want to be, and that's what message you want to send. Now personally, if none of that resonated with you, it takes courage, it really does. It takes courage to walk into a room of relative strangers who have a lot of power over you and then tell them bad news. That's just a nasty power dynamic. It takes courage to do it. So if all the other stuff doesn't resonate with you, just keep in mind that this silly little thing, this work thing, that feels so intimidating and so terrifying is something that you're going to carry with you outside of work. And so when something comes up and you need to find that courage, you've got it there too. Okay, so this was something that really started to interest me in the last few years, and that's how different cultures really drive and direct how you communicate to the upper levels. As an example, as most of you are PMs, have been PMs, are PMs, in organizations that believe in PMing, obviously, or you wouldn't be there. But there are different levels of believing in PMing. There are some organizations that believe in project management because it gives them a single neck to squeeze, a single person to put on the hook for whatever happens with that project. And in a way, putting you as a project manager as an investment in you as a leader. They think that you have what it takes to lead the project. It's a very personal thing. As a result, when you walk in and you deliver bad news, it's a personal failing. You have failed, and you're going to feel that from them in that situation, and it's daunting. It's very daunting. When that happens, if that happens in your organization, the thing to keep in mind is that every single PM in your organization has faced and felt that exact same thing. And if you do not falter and you keep going and you deliver that project, which you will, you're going to come out being a person who looks really good, despite the problem that you went through. So don't let a bad battle, a bad meeting, a bad direct hit to your personality affect how how you deliver that project, because you own it, it's your project. On the flip side, if you're in an organization that believes in project management, holy moly, it is so night and day different. You end up with a problem and you go and you're like quaking in your shoes going, oh boy, what's gonna happen now? I'm gonna get personally attacked. And they say, oh, do you have a risk open? Yeah, I do, and I've got a mitigation plan and a contingency plan. Okay, so I guess we need to execute that contingency plan. Why don't you open up an issue? Already did, on it, got it. And great, so now we just need to escalate it, take it to the advisory board, and we'll get you an answer. No personal attacks, no fault, no nothing. It was amazing when this happened to me the first time. I just about fell over. So that can really obviously drive how you're going to deliver the message and to whom you're going to deliver it. If they trust the process, you're going to go in with the facts and the figures and the tools, and you're going to tell them that you have done everything you can do, and this is the next step. And frankly, even if they don't believe in the process, you're going to do the same thing. You've crossed the I's, crossed the T's, dotted the I's. You've done everything you need to do, and when they ask you the questions, the tough questions, and challenge you, you can say, I have done all this work. Another thing that varies a lot is most organizations have multiple projects. And for example, you might be in the middle of a merger or an acquisition. And then there might be a second project that's adding a bunch of new data into a table and creating a report that's used monthly. If the monthly report is manually generated now and it saves some work for people, it's valued. It's absolutely valued. It's a project, it's valued. But it's not going to be valued or as important as the merger and acquisition, right? So if you've got a 2-week delay to your report, it's not going to register the same way a 2-week delay to the merger or acquisition. So it's helpful to understand where your project is in the hierarchy and how engaged the management is before you walk into the meeting. Similarly, some of these meetings are just opportunities to document what everybody already knows. So you've already spoken to your uplines, they all know that your project's red, and they all know why the project's red, but now you've got to go in there and you just got to present it, and it gets documented, and now it's formal. And if that's the case, then you're not going to be nearly as nervous as if you just got notified walking into the meeting thinking everything was green that, uh-oh, a server just blew up and now we're in big trouble. So how much they know before you walk in is a key thing to know in your mind before you start presenting it. Similarly, we talked a little bit, I think, about big pictures and analytical and how much detail you want to go into. Executives, by and large, are big picture people. Not always, there are exceptions. But for the most part, they're big picture people. And I would encourage you, unless you absolutely know otherwise, to go in with that idea that I'm going to give them the bottom line up front. Okay, another thought, big animal pictures. I have a friend who used to talk, oh, we just got to do the big animal picture. Like, big ears, a trunk, and a tail. Okay, we got it, it's an elephant. We don't need to be down here describing their toenail. We just need to describe the big ears, the trunk, and the tail. It's an elephant. So anticipate that. Anticipate when you're speaking to executives that they want the bottom line up front, and then let them drive it from there. If you have 1 or 2 analytical people, or if there's a technical issue and the CTO is in the room and feels personally affronted that you're having a technical problem, they may want to drive down deep into details. Anticipate that. You know that. You know your audience. So, great. Thank you for bringing that up. I actually anticipated you would have some questions, and I put 30 minutes on your calendar tomorrow so that we can work through it and I can make sure that whatever decision is made is the right thing to do. Or, thank you for bringing that up. We hadn't considered it. Let me put some time on your calendar so we can talk through it. But you own the delivery of the message in there. Do not let them deliver it. This is another interesting one. If you have been in an organization, for a long time, you may know the ins and outs of many different things, right? And they may know you very, very well. So you walk in and you say, I've met with people, we've talked about all the options, these are the viable options. And they may say, we know you, we trust you, yes, those are the viable options. If you don't have that level of familiarity, or they don't yet have that level of trust in you, you're new to the organization, or you're expanding your knowledge into a new area, or a new business, a new line of business, they may challenge you, and you should anticipate that. And it's not doubting you personally, it's just wanting to make sure that the best decision is being made. So to that end, if you think there's any question, and I would bring your technical experts with you. Why not? Bring them into the room, and if there are questions, hey, they're ready to back me up 100%. They'll probably never speak because you brought them, but you've got them there, just in case. And if they can't actually physically be in the room with you, I spoke with Joe, I spoke with Neil, I spoke with Dave, and they all agreed that these are our options. And we can have a secondary, more detailed meeting if you need it, but at least you're prepared. And then finally, culture is going to drive how much you do know. Do any of you guys know what I mean by greening up? All right, so in case you don't, I hate this switch, I don't know why it's so slow. So the greening up of a project. For the sake of this discussion, we've got 3 different levels. We've got the team discussion, review with the manager, and the review with the executives. You go and you meet with the team. Holy moly, this project is in trouble. That's red, by the way, not brown. Everything is red. We're missing all our deadlines. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. You say, I hear you. We are red. So then you go and you talk to your manager, and the manager says, how's the project going? You know, we've got some issues, but we're okay. We'll be fine. We'll get out of it. And of course, then when it goes to the executives, hunky-dory, no problems whatsoever. I ask you guys, are there situations where this makes sense? I saw a nod. Anyone else? Is there a situation where you should, no, I don't want to ask it that way. Is this always wrong?
No, it's not.
All right, well, I'll give you the answer here. So, I was thinking, for the team discussion, if you're doing an agile thing, you might be in a sprint and the team is going, oh my gosh, this is taking days longer than I expected to. I'm totally going to miss the end of the sprint. We're red. And we're not going to be able to make it up in the next sprint either. We're red. Okay, there you're red. But you also know that you have 3 extra weeks of buffer built into the project before the release date, which is still 6 weeks away. You're going to make that up in no time. So yeah, manager, if you go and talk to the team, they're going to be like, oh, we're red. They're not red. They're going to be fine. We're going to hit that release date because the delays are minor compared to the buffer that we have. So it makes sense. Or maybe you know what you're going to do. You already have the plan in place. It might be red now and it might be red later, but by the time something big milestone is in place, you're going to have it covered. So, and the other thing might be it's a new issue, but there are a lot of different options, and while you haven't weighed them out, you know that you've got plenty of opportunities to fix this before you really have a problem. So I'm not saying that things should always go green as they go up, but they do, oftentimes, and there are reasons why they might. But the culture within the organization will drive this. There are some executives who would not tolerate this. They want to know every little thing. It was particularly in a flat organization, you wouldn't be doing that very much. But in hierarchical organizations, things definitely green up. And there's reason for it, because they're going to be focusing on the mergers and acquisitions and not on the 2-week late report. So now you're in there. You're about to go deliver the bad news. You're where I was years ago, knees knocking, heart pounding, palms down. Seriously, I thought I was going to pass out one time. It was terrible. Own it, right? This is your project. Nobody knows this project the way that you know this project. You're going to walk in there and you're going to tell them what's happening. The project is currently red. We opened 2 issues this week. One of them should be resolved in a week. The other one, we are working through some options. The most minor effect that it's going to have is a week delay, but it could be a longer delay than that. We are still evaluating. We will get back to you in a week and let you know. Know how much detail, this goes back to that person who talks when they get nervous too much. decide before you walk in the room exactly how much you're gonna share. And then do not deviate from that no matter what. No matter how many questions they ask, you're not gonna tell them that Sally was late for the 4th time in a row and it just delayed everything, nobody knew what was going on. No. Project issues affect solutions, okay? And no matter what they do not deviate from it, don't share more. If you do anyway, or if you've miscalculated that and you've gotten too much detail and you're in there and you start talking about the widget that's affecting the process with the Boolean integrator and the blah, 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 and they're going, stop, and bring yourself back up. And you could stop mid-sentence and they probably wouldn't even know. You can go back to bottom line up front, okay? If they are engaged, that's awesome. Quit while you're ahead. Bottom line up front, okay? And then you're done, and then they drive it, they own it. This is more, less a point, more just something to keep in mind, that the more detail you provide, the more they're gonna ask. So, if you get into gossiping about Sally being late again, they're gonna say, well, why is Sally late all the time? And this has nothing to do with the project anymore. Now you're just sharing garbage, and it's not of value. So just keep in mind, the more detail you provide, the more they're gonna ask for. So keep it up, bottom line up front, and then stop. So, when you're delivering the news, you're going to deliver it bottom line up front. 2 issues. One's already resolved and we'll have the fix in a week. The other one, we're working through options, is going to delay the project at least a week. We know this for a fact. We have a meeting tomorrow. We'll get back to you in 2 days with an update. There you go, you're done. You've been honest, you've been accurate. If they want to know, yes, you've used your tools. In an organization that believes in project management, this is golden. And if they don't, you're doing it anyway to show them that you're on top of it. You've got your risks, you've got your issues, you've documented the heck out of this thing. Everybody knows it's been communicated, and these are exactly what the certain impacts are, 1 week. And the potential impacts could be more. We might have 80% of this, we might be able to resolve 80% of the issue. The remaining 20% will have to document a risk and go live with it, and hope for the best. There you go. Take responsibility. This isn't Sally's fault for being late 4 days in a row. You are owning this project, you are managing the project, the people, the delivery. And you want to send them the message that yes, you are doing that. As soon as you start blaming Sally or anybody else, you've lost that. If there is a situation where you are at sea, you're not sure what to do, you've got a brand new problem, there was an earthquake in Kuala Lumpur and your whole team that works there has been incommunicado. What do I do? I've got some thoughts, but I could really use some help. It's okay. Or even better, we've brainstormed, but I know that Sarah has experience in this and it would really be helpful to us if you would allow us to use her in our next couple of meetings until we get this under control. Know exactly what you want and ask for it if you do not have it. Do not go in there and throw yourself at the mercy and say, oh, give me something. But know what you're missing and ask for it. And don't be afraid to do that. When you're telling them about it, you're telling them that you have already mitigated the risks. You're into your contingency plans. You've got the expert opinions of people, or if you don't, you know who you need to weigh in on the matter. And you're going to tell them when you're going to talk to them next, when they're going to get their next update, how you're communicating it, whole communication thing. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. We had some fun with this. We had a long weekend, and I was like, so what are all the things we don't do? But we ended up going a more serious direction after a while. And we were talking about some of the things that people, executives, have done when they've been faced with bad news. It's just not really that big a deal. Deepwater Horizon, BP, the oil spill. Well, in the grand scheme of the ocean, it's really not that much oil. They said that. They said that. I mean, wow, bad, bad, bad. Do not downplay the news, okay? You've got to own what happened and acknowledge that it was not a good thing. You can't expect people to accept it. It's not a big deal. Elon Musk did the same thing when somebody died in a Tesla. He said, well, statistically speaking, one death. It's nothing. Ooh, the family of that person must have felt really great about that. Don't lie. If you're in a meeting and you're telling them, oh, I did all these things and I'm on top of it, and they say, did you think to reach out to this person and you didn't? Yeah, they haven't gotten back to me yet. Don't. And then you run out of the meeting and you try to contact them, but you don't want to do that. Just say, no, great idea. I would love to do that. I will do that right afterwards. It's not a big deal. Own it. Be it. This is where we had some fun. You're not going to joke about it. You're not going to swear. They said you'll never ever walk into a room and say, well, I hope it's going to work out, or we're going to try. No. I said, do or do not. There is no try. You just do it or you don't, but there's no try. And to the same extent, it's never maybe or probably or it appears, or another one that I think a lot of us tend to do is, as I understand it, or it's my understanding that you either know or you don't. You do or you do not, but you don't half-ass it. Sorry. All right. So fallout is a dark word, but I wanted to be honest. When you walk into a meeting, no matter how nervous you are, whatever you're delivering, you got to keep in mind that you are delivering this news to people who don't really want to hear bad news. Even if they know it's coming, they're not excited about it. You may be undermining what an executive said to a client stakeholder just this morning about how confident he was that this project was going to be on time, and now you're walking in and telling him, no, it's not. You don't know how much at stake they have. So keep in mind that they have their own positions on the whole thing, and they are going to react. So some of the common reactions you will see. They're going to be that guy that jumps to the solutions all the time. And if they do that, they may come up with some really good ideas. I mean, these are experienced people, they're executives, they've seen this before. And if they bring up a good idea, it's an idea, it's not a solution, and it's not the solution. It is a great idea that you will look into with your team and evaluate. If they are just telling you what to do, you say, I'm going to go back to the team and the experts that we've been working with, and we're going to work through this, and we will definitely keep that in mind. Or better yet, would you like to join us? We have a brainstorming session in 2 hours. But don't let them drive you into a position, especially if it's new and uncomfortable to you. You know this project, it is your project, and you know the work that's been done to get you to where you are here. They don't, typically. They're hearing what you're saying, but they don't know all that detail because I told you not to bring it into the room. You didn't. Nice job. Another thing they'll do, oversimplify the issue. That widget that's got that boolean and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's not a big deal. That's a tiny little piece of the project. How can that turn you red? That's nothing. Move along. That is significant. That little widget drives the entire project, and if that fails, then none of this is of value. Oh, refusing ownership. This one hurts. This goes back to when the project manager is personally responsible in your organization, and that's the way they view it as a culture. When you go in and they think it's your fault because you're in charge, and if you're coming to them with a red, no, I don't accept that you are over budget. No, I don't accept that you are going to miss your deadlines. No, I don't accept that you need more resources. It's no. You're going to deliver this project on time, on budget, the way that I told you to in the first place. I didn't hear anything you just said. You're going to go off and do it. I've been there. Have any of you guys been there? Okay, we are continuing to meet. We have a meeting tomorrow. We have a meeting this afternoon. We're going to be working through solutions. We will come back to you with the options that we can come up with. If you would like to be part of that, you are welcome to be part of that. But they're not going to drive you out of that room as like, it's all my problem, it's all my fault. You still are going to do what you know you need to do. You're still going to rely on your tools. And when you, in the end, come through with that project, even if it's a month late, by that point they've accepted it, and you're a hero. Nice job. Again, don't lose the war because of that one battle that was personal.
Do you want questions now, or do you want me to hold off?
We're about 10 seconds from questions, but if it's related to this.
It is related to that.
Yeah.
My question is, when they refuse ownership, do you also have an executive sponsorship problem and something else that might impact the project you need to manage?
You could. Yeah, it depends a little bit. Ultimately, even when they reject it, it's posture. You know, they know it's their project, they own it. And that's why I say it's going to take them time, but by the time you're a month late and you've delivered the project, they're going to be happy. One of the projects that I was on, they did this every single week. Every single week we went and we said, we cannot meet these dates. We've done everything that you've told us to, but we cannot possibly meet these dates. You're going to meet these dates. Oh my God, it was brutal. It was brutal. I went on and on. And the project ended up getting significantly delayed. If they had accepted our recommendation the first time we walked in and given us the amount of time we wanted, it would have gotten us to the exact same place, the exact same time, and we would all have felt so much better. But no, they forced it out of us a day at a time until we finally got it, but when we crossed the finish line, we were heroes. So some of it goes back to the culture. The executives are going to hang on tooth and nail and try to get as much out of you as they possibly can before they relinquish and let you do what you need to do. That's the way that I see it. I don't think it's typically like I refuse to be a project sponsor. I think it's I'm going to be tough and make you do everything you possibly can before I give you an inch. And I do think that's cultural. I don't think that happens in every business. And the blame game. You guys talked about that earlier. Really? That widget's not getting done? Why not? Who did it? Whose responsibility was that? Why didn't they deliver it? Good Lord. Who cares? That's not the point. The point is that it's late, right? I would just say don't play that game. You know, when they ask the question, ignore it. Oh my gosh, that's a great thing to do. Who's responsible for that widget? The widget will be done in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, the blame game, you can't go there. And you've got to do everything you can. It goes back to that being a leader. You know, if your leaders aren't being good leaders, don't let them drag you down. So, fall back to your policies again and again and again, right? Whose fault is that widget? We had a risk over 2 months ago. We knew that this technology was more temperamental than we expected it to be. We've been working accordingly. We have a mitigation plan that we've been doing. Unfortunately, it failed. Now we are into our contingency plan, which is opening this issue and going and escalating this thing. Boom, there you did it. Nice job. If you made a mistake, acknowledge it. You know, I really thought that this new developer understood all of our processes well enough to deliver quickly. Unfortunately, I was incorrect. They needed more guidance and help than we were able to give them. As a result, I need more resources, or I need another person, or we're going to be late. And then, bottom line, whatever it is, whatever happened, even when it's over and there's not the ire around it, you own it. You have worked it from beginning to end. You know how it happened, and you know how to avoid it in the future. Make sure you don't lose it. When I was earlier in my career, I ignored lessons learned a lot. You know, I'll remember that, it's no big deal, we'll get to it later. And oftentimes, even now, I find that when we get to the lessons learned, we just had a lessons learned meeting the other day. And I said, so, what did we learn? Everyone was kind of quiet. We kind of came up with a couple of things. And we chatted for a while, and we recognized that it was a lot better than a prior conversation where nobody could shut up because you were all trying to get stuff down. But then like 40 minutes into an hour meeting, somebody said, oh, I have a whole list, I just found it. And I was like, I have a whole list. And throughout out the whole thing. I'd been keeping notes of lessons learned. As it turned out, every single one of us had our own list of lessons learned. It's a really good practice because you do forget. You know, especially when the thrill of victory, when it's all over. It was awesome, you made it through. But there are things always throughout the capture, remember. Especially if you've been knocking knees and heart palpitations in front of the executives, note what happened and make sure that you have a lessons learned document so you can fix it in the future. And you don't have to go through all that again. Yeah. So, any questions? Pretty straightforward. Any experiences anyone wants to share? All right. Yeah.
Well, one thing, because you reiterated BLUF, you know, a bunch of times, that's a good rule for your emails too, right? So like nobody wants to hear the story with like the punchline, like 4 paragraphs down.
Yes.
So usually if you write something, you know, the question, the need should be on the top. So like you do like you normally do and then take that bottom line and put it at the top, because usually you're writing like, hey, this is what happened, and blah, blah, blah. And at the end you say, I need this. And they never get to the end, so
Yes.
they don't know what you need.
Yes,
And
that's
so
true.
it's like, I need this, oh, here's the backstory,
Yes.
right? Because maybe if they read the first line and then answer your question, and don't read the rest, it doesn't really matter.
That is, yes, that is very true. Excellent point.
So,
Yeah. I was just thinking, wow. You tickled something in my mind. Oh, Blaise Pascal. When I was going through all of this stuff, Blaise Pascal said, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time. Because it takes time, right? And that's exactly it. I used to work with somebody who I worked with a lot about trying to truncate emails, because a simple something I would have written in 3 sentences was like 3 paragraphs. And if you printed it out, it would be multiple pages long. I was like, you can't keep doing this. Nobody's reading your emails. So yes,
and
absolutely.
I even try now to move it into my subject line, to say, response required, blah, right?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
so even if they never got past the subject line, they know, oh, what action is this person asking me to do before I even open the note,
Yeah, that is a great point.
right? So it could apply to anything.
Yeah,
Can you tell my wife that about texting?
there you go. Really? Texting is supposed to be short.
Oh, but speaking.
Yeah, you can take the presentation. Yeah.
Hey, so I think one thing that you didn't speak to in here, but you did it throughout your presentation tonight, was when it's appropriate to include a humorous aside, or how you include humor in there, or just your delivery, you know, how you're doing it. It's hard to have those tough conversations. You're delivering not the best news, and how to feel out the crowd, and you know, inject that in there. But if you're successful, it can really turn the tide for the way a conversation goes. And you were very good during your presentation. You made me smile many times.
Thank you guys very much. Fun having an opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you.